Let's Have Fun 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 is the first segment of the 18th episode of the 3rd season of Mickey Mouse Funhouse, and as always there will be spoilers as I go through the events of the episode or the segment chronologically and share some thoughts. And I quite liked this one. We do have some good messages, but I also just found the music, the animation to be really fun as well. Daisy is heading off to Musicville to see her favourite band, Cosmo and the Beach Bugs, and everybody else thinks, yeah, this is going to be a great experience, let's all go. And Daisy doesn't really want the others to go. It's her favourite band, it's her special thing, but obviously she can't really come out and say that, so begrudgingly she kind of lets the others go along with her. They arrive there, Von Drake's outfit is amazing, he looks fabulous, and Daisy then tries really hard to prove that she is the biggest fan. And if you've ever considered yourself to be the biggest fan of something, you will be able to relate. I always try to not do this. I try not to say, but I'm the bigger fan. No, I care more about this, because it's just not a good attitude to have. But if you are a very big fan of something, I'm sure you can relate to that in some way. If not now, then perhaps at an earlier time in your life. Certainly, I think there are a lot of times in childhood and in adolescence when you feel like you have to prove that you're a big fan. And I feel like this is something that I felt a lot when I was younger. And I think that, for me at least, this perhaps led to buying a lot of merchandise to prove I was the biggest fan of something. And that's not to say I didn't enjoy the merchandise that I bought about various fandoms, but sometimes I feel like I was maybe buying it because I felt like I had to. And if I didn't, then I'm not the biggest fan. And obviously that's a ridiculous attitude to have, but this is clearly the attitude that Daisy has. She has this little bobblehead figurine, and she thinks that by owning this makes her the biggest fan. But then she looks around her, and obviously other people there have the bobblehead, and they have the other merchandise things, and it's difficult for Daisy to sit with. And again, if you've ever been part of a fandom, you may know what that feels like. And then the band starts to play, and it seems like for a moment Daisy has forgotten this anxiety. Everybody's just really excited, really having a great time. The bugs are adorable. The animation is great. They're using a little earbud, an upside down earbud as a microphone. It's really creative. It's beautifully done. The music is fun. And Daisy looks around her and she realizes she's not the only person who knows the special dance, and she's not the only person who wants to wear the merchandise, and she walks off. And I feel like that was maybe slightly unrealistic. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe this would just be me, but if I was in the presence of my favourite actor, for example, and I saw other people loving that actor, I'm not going to walk away from the situation, because then that would kind of prove that I care more about people's opinions than I do about the actor in question. So I didn't believe that. I don't think it was realistic that Daisy would walk away from seeing her favourite band playing just because she felt a little bit hurt. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe other people would respond that way. Minnie goes after her because Minnie is obviously a good friend, and Daisy eventually explains to her, if other people like what I like, it won't be special to me anymore. Which, again, if you've ever been part of a fandom, it is a strong sentiment. Because as soon as somebody else likes what you like, there is this pressure for you to kind of, in a way, prove that you're the biggest fan. Because if they start obsessing over it, and you don't outwardly obsess over it, you're going to look like you care less. And again, over time, with age, that's something that I've learned is just absolute nonsense. And you don't need to prove anything to anybody. But I certainly think when you're younger, it can be very much the case. So if you are a part of a fandom and you do feel like that just now, like you have to try and prove how much you care about it, don't worry about it. You don't need to prove anything to anybody, because your love of that fandom or that actor or that musician is internal. It's how it makes you feel, not how others perceive it. And as I said, for me at least, it took a long time to learn that lesson. And clearly Daisy is starting to learn that lesson as Minnie gives her a good pep talk. And as she said, you can share this with other people and then it's really exciting. And that as well is a really important message. It is so much more fun when you have somebody to talk with about your favourite fandoms. It's all well and good getting excited about things by yourself, but when you have somebody to bounce ideas off of and to discuss theories with and to pick apart things with, it's so much more thrilling. And I think that that's also a great message. Not just that you shouldn't feel the need to try and prove that you're the biggest fan or that you love it more than somebody else, but also that if you bring somebody else into that circle, it can be a much more exciting experience. I will say this topic for the target audience, in my opinion, is quite advanced. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be listening to this topic. I don't think that's the case at all. I think it's never too early to start delivering these positive outlooks. But I do think it is quite an extreme topic, maybe quite a hard one to grasp. I don't know if very young children, and I'm trying to think back to kind of my own age when I was maybe 4-ish, let's say. I don't know if I ever felt that need to be the biggest fan. I think that came maybe a couple of years later, maybe from about the age of 8 or 9. So I do think the topic's maybe not necessarily ideal for the target audience in terms of being applicable at the time. But again, it's never too early to start delivering these positive messages and to help people shape a more healthy outlook in certain scenarios. So I don't have a problem with it. I just think maybe it's quite complex compared to some of the messages and morals that we get. But it's not a criticism, just an observation. And at the very end, Daisy realises, yeah, you're right, Minnie, and they go off and have a wonderful time. It's a really solid episode. Animation is gorgeous, music is great, some really strong messages. And if, as I said, if you are part of a fandom, if you are a fan of somebody specific, and you feel like there's this pressure to prove that you're not even necessarily just a big fan, but just a fan in general, try to ignore that. It is so difficult. And as I said, it took me many years to realise that stuff doesn't equal commitment. I am committed to following the careers of this person and this person, but I don't need to buy all of the merchandise that comes with their films or their TV shows. Obviously, if I want to, absolutely can, fantastic. But there shouldn't be that pressure, because there is generally this belief, and I hate it, that if you don't put your hand in your pocket and buy something, then you're not the biggest fan, or you're not a fan, or you do not care. And I hate that so much. And if you are in that position where you currently love a film or a TV show and you feel this pressure to buy all of the things that come with it, but you don't want to, you don't want the stuff, try to look past that and realise that your love of the film or the fandom comes from within. And owning material possessions just to prove you're a fan will not make any difference at all. And again, that is quite a complex thing for the target audience for Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. No, Mickey Mouse Funhouse. So, I don't know. I feel like maybe it's not the ideal topic for this. But again, never too early to start with these messages. So, I think there are some really great opportunities for delivering some really powerful messages here. And if you are in Daisy's position, I think it's a really beneficial story. And on top of that, great animation, great music. It's a really solid segment.